between nations and to improving our own understanding of local Indigenous people and cultures. We acknowledge the ancestral and unceded territory of all the Inuit, Métis, and First Nations people that call this land home. The OLBA is on the traditional territories of more than 130 First Nations, including the Anishinaabe Nation, the Anishinaabe Aski Nation, Grand Council Treaty 3, Iroquois, Chippewa, Haudenosaunee, and Wendat people, and many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people.
I'll now call for a minute of silence for remembrance. Okay. Karen, I don't know where we are with respect to a quorum, but I assume we have a quorum. We have over.
Yes, I've been keeping track, and we have enough for quorum.
So we'll declare that we have a quorum for the purposes of the meeting. So my opening remarks. Welcome to the OLBA AGM for 2022. Today I want to welcome special guests, Ian Howard, Director, World Bowls, Catherine McGregor, President, Bowls Canada Bowling Green, and the district chairs and club representatives of OLBA. Also present is Jake Jutnik, Bowls Canada, who will be reporting shortly on Bowls Canada initiatives. I also want to acknowledge the work of Anna Mees, CEO, Bowls Canada, who is not able to be with us today, and her team for the support provided to the provincial bowls associations over the past year. Thank you, Anna. Furthermore, I want to thank on behalf of the Bowlers of Ontario, your board of directors for 2021. Vice President Ralph Ellis, who has done an amazing job as in his other role as Director of Grants. Karen Atkin, our Secretary. John Fenton, Treasurer, who keeps track of all of our money. Jason Curry, our Officiating Director. Nan Hendren, Governance, deals with all the policy requirements to maintain our compliance with the Ontario Amateur Sport Fund and other government organisations. Mary Lou Richards, Coaching and Lead Facilitator for Ontario, assisted ably by Blaine Phillips, Coaching. Charlie Roach, our Subject Matter Experts on Greens. Thank you, Charlie. I know you held a session recently where you had nearly 50 people from across the province. Job well done. James Rimmer, our Marketing and Sponsorship Director. Laurie Roth, our Communications Director for this year. And Gary Oswald, Executive Director. I'd also like to thank Jason Curry and Karen Atkins for making the arrangements for today's meeting, and Ralph Ellis, who will be moderating the meeting. I also want to thank Bill Arthur, who chaired the nomination committee process, assisted by Val McWilliams. Also Laura Seed, who looks after our awards. Also Gary Higgins, who supports OLBA on all things IT and looks after our website. If you have any questions, Ralph will ensure that you receive an answer during the meeting, or otherwise, if we can't answer the question because of the technical nature of the question, we will certainly get back to you. A board member will get back to you after the conclusion of the meeting. As with 2021, COVID has resulted in a year of significant disruption to the OLBA through 2022. the impact of which resulted in clubs and the OLBA suffering considerable financial loss and the cancellation of Bowls Canada's national and OLBA provincial championships, and for the most part, clubs opened tournaments across Ontario. We were, however, able to hold the Back to Bowls tournament in Windsor, Woodstock and Oakville with the support of the Championships Committee. Thank you, guys. Lost membership and a significant financial loss to many clubs has caused us much concern, not all of which is a write-off. With Ralph's effort in assisting clubs, this has been a banner year for grants, and Ralph will report later. Gary Oswald, together with the combined efforts of other provincial sports organisations, was able to lobby the minister responsible for Ontario Amateur Sport Fund to provide funding to PSO organisations and their provincial associations, with funding to assist clubs through the hardship imposed by COVID. Gary will report on the parameters of the funding in his report today. I must say it's over $100,000 that we received, and we normally only get about 30. So it's been quite a lot of help to the clubs. I'm also pleased to note that over 50 clubs have signed on to the Bowls Canada Safe Sport program. This program will further develop potential to recruit and, importantly, retain club membership. This week is National Volunteer Week 2022. Nationally, volunteers for sport contribute on average 105 hours of their time each year. This is a lot of people volunteering a lot of time for their sport. I'm sure this is a true reflection of the time invested by our members in the Ontario Lawn Bowling Association. The following may be ways to recognise the most important asset, our volunteers. Some would say greens, but without volunteers, we would be pushed to operate our clubs. 1, prioritise appreciation. We all have many competing priorities and timelines, but we need to prioritise volunteer appreciation and understand their needs and interests and engage in the process of appreciation on an ongoing basis. 2, share volunteer impact. Volunteers want to feel and see that they are making a difference. One way to do this is to create and share impact reports with your volunteers. Impact reports can be a great way to show your appreciation for your volunteers. And 3, incentive participation. Incentives work as a great method of appreciation. Honorariums, gift cards, appreciation events, thank you barbecues, pins, plaques work and will provide an incentive for continued participation by your volunteers. Finally, remember, we are all volunteers doing the best we can, sometimes under very difficult circumstances. So volunteers should be treated with respect and appreciation. To all the OLBA board members, district chairs and club volunteers, thank you. And I trust you will have a great summer bowling. Karen, if we can establish a quorum.
I can confirm that we've exceeded our quorum, so we are good to go.
Thank you, Karen. I need to ask if anybody has a conflict of interest. They should declare it now. And I see or hear nobody declaring a conflict of interest, so we've satisfied that section of our agenda. Approval of the agenda. Motion 1. The agenda as circulated be approved. I need someone to move that.
You may need to unmute yourself to do that.
James Rimmer will move it.
James, thank you.
I'll second that.
And that is speaking?
Jim Wilson,
Thank you, Jim.
Stouffville Lawn Bowling.
Thank you, Jim.
There's a hand raised.
I'm sorry. Yes, we need to see that we have. So in the window, go to the volume, and I can't control the bottom of the left corner.
There's a couple of hands raised.
Do we have enough hands raised, raised? Just
I
go
think
to
the one was raised before the agenda was Brenda Eckhart has a question.
I think that may be a volume issue on Brenda's part. I'm trying to work through that in the chat.
Do we have enough hands raised to carry the motion?
Philip, I might suggest for this kind of group voting, it might be better to do who is opposed.
Yeah, I was just thinking that. Thanks, Jason, because I was going to say if people can't find the hand raise button,
Yeah.
they'll need to take their hand down so that when I ask, is anybody opposed, then they'll hit the hands button. So for those opposed to the approval of the agenda, raise their hand. Dresden has their hand up. Can you see how many hands are up for opposing the agenda approval? Have you got anything in the Ralph? Have you got anything in the chat?
No, not about this. I think you've only got one hand raised in opposition. I think that may be an error, but
Okay.
So I think you're good to go.
Okay. Thank you, Karen. So we'll approve the agenda as approved. Approval of minutes from the 2021 AGM. So the motion number 2 is the minutes of May 1, 2021 annual general meeting as circulated be approved. I need somebody to.
Mike Skelton from Lenora.
Mike Skelton.
Jeff Shurry from Muskoka will second.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Mike. I think I'll do the same thing. Anybody who is opposed?
Sorry, we only have one voting delegate per club, and that was 2 people from Muskoka. So I think we need somebody else to second the motion.
Oh, I thought James was from somewhere else.
Oh, sorry, maybe I misheard.
James,
Joyce from Pickering will second.
Thank
Jim
you.
Jim Wilson from Muskoka was the seconder. James, what club did you belong to?
I'm from Stouffville Lawn Bowling Club.
Stouffville, thank you. So we've got James from Stouffville and Jim Wilson from Muskoka.
No,
Jeff Shurry from Muskoka. Sorry. Jeff Shurry from Muskoka was the second.
You got that, Karen?
Yeah.
Anybody opposed to acceptance of the minutes from the May 1, 2021 AGM? If you have an objection or you want to raise an issue, please go to the chat so Ralph can pick up the question. I see Kingston has a raised hand. You need to go to the chat and type your question on the chat so that we can address that. Ralph, have you got any questions?
A couple here and there, but I'm working my way through them.
Hello, can you hear me from Trenton?
Yes.
I'm on the telephone. How can I vote? Shall I just say yes?
Fine. Thank you, Trenton. Ralph, do I have enough votes to?
Yeah, well, nobody's actually voted against this, so yes, you're good to go.
Good to go. Thank you very much, everybody. The motion's carried. OLBA elections. The nomination committee was chaired by Bill Arthur, assisted by Val McWilliams and Ralph Ellis and myself. We have 6 nominations for the vacant positions. There being 6 nominations at the point at which the nomination process closed, that we do not have to take any, we won't be taking nominations from the floor. And I will declare that the nominations as presented by the nominations committee to be accepted. Those nominations are for the 2022 OLBA board, Vice President Ralph Ellis, Secretary Karen Atkin, Director Deborah Holdsworth, Director Jason Curry, Director Laurie Roth, and Director Mary Lou Santos Richards. So thank you very much, Bill, for all your work. And thank you to the nominees who put their names forward to participate on the OLBA board. I also want to just mention that OLBA membership is about 50% female women, and we now have 5 of 12 members of our board of directors that are women. So we are close to parity, and I want to acknowledge that. Thank you. Jake Shutnik, are you there?
Present.
Jake, I'll leave the floor to you, and you can do your presentation, and thank you for your time.
Wonderful, absolutely, thank you. I am going to ask that everybody pull out their phone if they have one, so that you can follow along with my presentation. So if you do have a phone, and if you're tech savvy, I'm going to ask that you go to menti.com, menti.com, and it'll ask for a code, 89074567. And the reason I'm doing this is so that way I can ask you questions. You can all type it in, and then we can all see it on the screen live. If you don't have your phone, that's fine. You just won't be able to participate in the questions. So I'll give a few minutes for everybody to get to menti.com, menti.com, 89074567. So to get things started, the first question is...
Jake, you've got a huge reverberation.
Is that coming from my end?
I think so. You
Can
may
I
want
have that login information again? Slowly?
Menti.com.
MENTI, Menti. We have about 8 people on the phone, Jake, so they can't see the slide.
Correct. If you're on the phone and if you happen to have another device that you can log in with, you'll be able to see my slides through menti.com as well. So it's menti.com, and the code is 89074567.
I'm sorry, how was your Easter or Passover?
Correct. That's the first question that I have up here. So there should be a way for you to enter in your response, and then it'll show up on the screen with everyone else.
Okay.
So you can see the word cloud forming. If you're on a computer or on your phone, you can see it. For those of you who called in, you won't be able to see this, but you'll be able to view the recording later.
What was the code number again, please?
So it's up at the top of the screen here as well. Menti.com code 8907 4567. Eight 907 4567. Wonderful. I can see that 32 people have responded so far, 34 people responded so far. If you're not able to get this working, that's not a problem, but this will be a fun way to engage with everyone so you can answer questions throughout here and everybody will be able to see it. So it looks like wonderful, good, fun, great, family, pleasant are the top responses so far based on the size of the text, which is good. Glad to hear everyone had a good Easter, good Passover, good holiday weekend with whatever you celebrate. So I guess I should start with an introduction. So my name's Jake. I work for Bowls Canada. I'm based out of St. Catharines. I've been working for Bowls Canada for almost 6 years. For those of you who may or may not know, Steve Shuknick's on the OLBA board, and I am one of his kids, definitely one of the better looking ones, but don't tell anybody else who said that. And so I'll be giving you an update on what Bowls Canada has been up to for the past year or so during these COVID times. So during COVID, for the past 2 years, we've had a chance to sort of press pause and reflect on all the things that we've been doing. And bouncing out of the pandemic, we didn't really want to just go back to normal because, quite frankly, that's not good enough. I don't want to say, let's get back to normal. I want to come back better. I want to be bigger. I want to grow our membership, grow our programs, really hit the ground running once we're allowed to get back to normal pre-COVID times. So I know that everyone's been asking, what's been the impact of COVID on Bowls in Canada. So membership across Canada is actually relatively stable, and I'll have more on that in the next slide. As Philip mentioned earlier, we didn't have any national championships in 2020 or 2021, but we are planning for a full slate this year in 2022. We welcomed a new club in Quebec and BC, and there's exploration of new clubs being developed or built in both Nova Scotia and Saskatchewan, which is exciting. So that's growth on the horizon with new clubs popping up, which is great to hear. And obviously with COVID, we've transitioned to a lot of virtual things like today. And so we've transitioned our coach workshops, board training, webinars, and so much more to the virtual environment. So we're still able to create and develop programs. So another question now for all of you in Menti on menti.com. Question is, what do you think the total membership was for all of Canada in 2021? Three is the first guess out there. 8,000, 7,000, 23,000. Doesn't look, 2,000 is the only double guesser so far. 10,000, a couple of people are guessing, okay. Remember, this is for all of Canada, not just Ontario. Brenda, I can see you need multiple choice. Well, this gives you a little more flexibility. There's no punishment for guessing a wrong answer here. It is just a fun little guess. Someone typing it out, 14. Interesting. So far, I'm not seeing 50,000. Wow, that's a huge guess. Not seeing a correct number yet, I don't think. But 35 of you have answered. Seems like 10,000 is the most popular guess. And so the actual answer is 11,329. So you can see from the chart on the screen, for those of you who are logged in, that 2017, 2018, 2019, we were actually growing in Canada. Slow, but there is growth. 2020, we waived membership fees, obviously, waived everything, so we have no idea how many people did or didn't participate across Canada. But in 2021, we had 11,329 members that reported as members. I suspect that's actually low. That's actually an undershoot. because a lot of clubs didn't open up until halfway through the season, or they didn't charge their members, or didn't keep track of full memberships for the full year. So I suspect that that number is actually a low ball. But this is super exciting though, because even in the middle of a pandemic, we're almost back to what our numbers were pre-pandemic. So that's very encouraging to see. And I also wanted to point out, you can see the third bullet point on the slide there, Alberta, the entire province of Alberta actually grew their membership 15% from where they were at pre-pandemic. So the pandemic was actually kind of a gift in disguise for them. They've grown. I think they went from like 800 members to 950 members or something like that. But growth is growth, and that's really exciting to see. So just so you know, that's where our numbers are at for all of Canada. Financially, just like everybody else, we took a pretty big hit during the pandemic. If you look at the years, 2019 and 2020, our fiscal year runs April 1 to March 31. So you can see pre-pandemic, we were doing fairly well with a touch over 600,000 for our revenue. But then once the pandemic hit, we lost over $100,000 in revenue. And you can see that we didn't charge any membership fees. And so Sport Canada filled in the gaps, I guess you could say. And so that really helped us out. So that way we could keep staff on, still keep the office open and develop programs. On the expense side, just as you would expect, since revenues were down, expenses were down. But one of the things that's really exciting to highlight is that pre-pandemic, we were spending over $100,000 on national championships. And so in the pandemic, we didn't do that. But we were able to start new programs such as Para Bowls and Safe Sport and Gender Equity, which is part of what all of you should know with Belonging in Bowls. Part of it is a pilot we ran with Just Roll With It for para bowlers, which I'll be touching on more in a minute. But just because we had a pandemic and a lot of us weren't out on the greens doesn't mean we were sitting here doing nothing. We have done a whole lot of work over the past 2 years, and I'm going to touch on some of these projects in just a moment. As you can see from the list here, there are a boatload of projects on the go, and I don't have time today to cover all of these, from coaching, officiating, greens, para, championships, high performance, club development, long-term development, strategic planning, fundraising, and more. There's a lot of things that we have on the go, so I'm going to try and summarize the highlights of all of these relatively quickly. Next question on Menti: does your club have a coach who was trained in the past 5 years? Does your club have a coach who was trained in the past 5 years? I can see Kingston and Nancy have raised a hand. I'm open to taking questions if you wanted. Nancy, I'm guessing you're raising your hand since you just sat through the club coach workshop, so you're saying that your club has? Yeah. So this is actually quite interesting to see that 21 clubs say yes, 12 say no, and 8 are unsure. I know that's obviously not representative of every club in Ontario, but it gives me a bit of an insider or an idea as to where clubs are at, who's taken training recently. And the reason that I'm asking, the reason that I wanted to know, is because we have just updated our club coach workshop to an online environment. So we are now able to deliver 2/3 of it over Zoom, and the last third of it still needs to be done in person. But it's super exciting, and a big thank you to Mary Lou and Blaine for being so willing to embrace this new concept of delivering part of it over Zoom. We have done 5 workshops so far since November of 2021, and the results are incredibly positive. So some of the evaluation feedback that we ask participants to answer in an anonymous survey at the end is, would you recommend this workshop to others? And just about 9 out of 10 say yes, they absolutely would. On a scale of 1 to 5, after taking this workshop, can you do a better job as a coach? And we're rating 4.67 out of 5. So that's, 80-90%, whatever that is. And then some of the questions of, on a scale of 1 to 5, do you have a better understanding of your responsibilities, better understanding of safety? Can you handle ethical decisions? And we're getting, 4.5 out of 5, 4.6 out of 5. So very, very positive results, which is really encouraging that we've only just started this online workshop and everyone seems to enjoy it thus far. If you are interested in attending or taking a club coach workshop, get in touch with Mary Lou. She'll put you in touch with me and we'll be able to set that up for you. I did also want to highlight the 3 different types of coaches that we have. There's club coach, competition coach, and performance coach. And new for this year, if you want to coach at a national championship, you have to be competition coach trained as a minimum. So this is still a work in progress. Almost every other sport, you have to be performance coach certified. And so we are slowly making our ways towards that. But for 2022, it's the first year. If you want to coach at a national championship, competition coach trained is the minimum that you must be in order to coach at that event. Greens. We've been working with the University of Guelph Turfgrass Institute on updating our greens manual. So big thank you to Charlie Roach, not only for introducing me to the University of Guelph, but also to help review the textbook. So Charlie and a couple other greenskeepers across Canada have had a chance to go through all of the content, and we're getting close to production now. So it's about 90 pages. It goes through a lot of the basics of what you need to know if you're going to be taking care of a lawn bowling green. We're just getting it back from translation, and then we're going to be sending it off to a graphic designer to make it look nice and pretty. But we will be selling these eventually once we get it done. And so if you are a new greenskeeper, even if you're an old or experienced greenskeeper, I'd highly recommend you buy this book, so that way you can make sure you're up to date on some of the best practices and things you should be doing when taking care of your greens. As I mentioned earlier, we do have a full slate of championships on our plate. Big thank you to Port Credit and James Gardens, so Ralph Gallipo and Ralph Ellis for co-hosting the youth. Charlie and Lenore, big thanks for them stepping up to host the majors. That's no small feat to do the pairs, the fours, and the outdoor singles all in one shot. Ted and Maureen and the whole Windsor crew are holding the mixed pairs and are new for the first time ever Para Bowls Championships. So if you have any bowlers at your club with visual impairments or physical disabilities, we have a new championship called the Para Bowls Championships, and it'll be open, so there's no playdowns for it. This is just direct entry. We will have a waiting list, just because obviously if we end up with 10,000 bowlers, we can't accommodate that. But let your bowlers know if they have visual impairments or physical disabilities that this is coming. I'm still working on getting the registration forms up online, but this will be a new and exciting event that we're hoping to go forward with every single year. And then senior triples are in Victoria, BC, and the indoor singles are back at the PIBC, where they've been for the past, I don't know how many years. Speaking of para bowlers, another question now. Do you have bowlers with mobility or visual impairments in your club? Cindy Higgins, yes, existing coaches can absolutely retake the course if you would like. Because we have the new workbooks that are incredibly pretty, very colorful, and very expensive to print, the cost of the online workshop is $100 per person, but that includes the workbooks being shipped directly to your house. And it's about 7 to 8 hours of material online. Not a problem. This is also very interesting for me to see which clubs have bowlers with mobility or visual impairments, because that's not something we typically ask for when we ask all of the provinces to report on their membership numbers. So we really had no idea how many bowlers in Canada have any sort of mobility or visual impairment. So this first season of Para Championships is going to be exciting for us to try and get a grasp on how many are out there, because right now we really have no idea. I'm not surprised by seeing this result that it looks like the majority do, or are unsure, I suppose. But thank you for sharing that. That's good data for us to know. So during COVID, during the past year, we ran a pilot program at the Commonwealth Lawn Bowling Club in Edmonton, Alberta, and the Nepean Lawn Bowling Club in Ottawa, where we wanted to pilot what it would be like if we put out a call to say, hey, if you're a person with any sort of impairment, would you like to try lawn bowling for the first time? And so both Commonwealth and Nepean put out the call. They got some participants and ran a couple of pilot programs for us to try and introduce lawn bowling to people with disabilities or various abilities. And through that, we've developed a whole lot of resources, which are now actually live on our website. Under Get Involved or Get Started, there's a tab called Just Roll With It. And that was the name of our pilot program. And so there's a whole lot of resources there now. If you're a club looking to start a para program at your club or want to introduce bowls to people with disabilities at your club, there's a boatload of resources there for you that are free of charge. So go and check that out if you're interested in starting a para program, or if you already have bowlers with disabilities at your club and want to be more meaningful about how you interact with them and offer programs for them. Based off of the pilot feedback, we also updated our Learn to Bowl leader guides. So now our Learn to Bowl kit that we sell, which comes with equipment, you can see the target map there in front of you as well as the leader guide, also has a section in there for how to teach the program to bowlers with various disabilities as well, to make it as inclusive as possible. Stay tuned to our website if you're interested to buy a Learn to Bowl kit, as we are going to be having our e-store launching shortly. Back to the Mentimeter. Has your club signed up for belonging in bowls? You can see Chester the Great has a raised hand. Yes, to belong. Thanks, Jeff. So looking like 27 have said yes, 7 said no, and 7 unsure. This is very encouraging to see that so many of you have signed up already. I would highly recommend for those of you who haven't to take a look at what it involves. We're trying to make it as easy as possible, but the whole focus of this is to make your club as inclusive and welcoming as possible to welcome new members to your club so that everybody can say that they belong in bowls. So right now, we only have our Safe Sport Foundation pillar up, active, ready to go. Thank you to all of you who have signed up and who have already started achieving the level 1, level 2, level 3 that is required for the Safe Sport Foundation pillar. But we have been working on each of the other 4: accessibility, club development, marketing, communications, diversity, and inclusion. So we will be releasing more content for each of those 4 pillars over the next year or so. As all of you are probably aware, Safe Sport is no small feat. As more and more organizations sign on to Safe Sport programs, we're getting more and more feedback, I suppose, from the government, from Sport Canada, saying that we need to make sport in Canada as safe as possible. There should not be any maltreatment, abuse, harassment, anything like that going on. And so more and more stipulations are coming down the pipelines saying that everyone in Canada should be taking safe sport training, everyone should be having proper policies in place, everyone should be doing their part to make sport as a safe and welcoming environment. And so that is part of why our Belonging in Bowls program is so useful, because we're trying to offer you resources to make it as easy as possible for you to do the right things. So whether that's policy templates, whether that's waiver templates, whether that's just having things posted on your website, we're trying to help you to make your club a safe environment for everyone. And so I know that all of you have probably gone through various other trainings and heard various other things coming down of what safe sport means and what you need to do at a club level. And so I wanted to find out, what are you most worried about when it comes to safe sport?
I'm back.
Welcome back, Ryan.
No comment.
EDI, that stands for Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion. Empathy, teasing, okay. Discouragement, injuries. Confusion.
Criticizing.
Criticizing, okay. Time, interesting. Negativity, why it's needed. Discounting, anger issues, tolerance, mobility, negativity. Overregulation, interesting. In your face attitudes and behavior, yep. poor sportsmanship. Ooh, injuries might have taken the lead now, being in the middle is the biggest text. Okay. Interesting. Thank you for filling this out. This will be good for us to go back because this will help us shape what future programs, future resources we need to provide so that way you can all make your clubs as safe, welcoming, and inclusive as possible. I did want to sort of spill the beans here a little bit and say recently Bowls Canada just hired 2 new people who are starting this week. One of them is pursuing her PhD in safe sport. And so that she is going to come with a wealth of knowledge and a wealth of experience that she's going to be able to share with all of you on safe sport best practices. So we're super excited to have her and to see what sort of resources she can develop for us. Marketing. So we have partnered with a company called Shortstop to reposition sport in Canadian society. So when you ask non-bowlers in Canada at large, what is lawn bowling? What do you think of lawn bowling? Most of them either are completely unaware that it exists or they think of old people wearing white. And so we want to change that image. We want people to think of bowls as more than that. And so we have hired a expert marketing team who have worked with a bunch of different sports to help us do that. And so they're coming up with a strategy and some resources for us that we will then eventually be sharing with all of you to try and change the image of lawn bowls so that we're not just old people wearing white, and so that more people are aware of us to begin with, because a lot of Canadians are completely unaware that lawn bowls is even a sport. So we're only in the early stages of working with this expert team. We'll obviously be sharing more details on that as we get them, but keep an eye out for that as we will be sharing a strategy for what's the best approach for us and hopefully some resources that all of you can use as well. Club development. So a while back, I was going club to club and putting on a in-person workshop on club development based off of the 4 quadrants here, which is stolen from Sport England, of how to run a club, how to run a sport club. And so I'm happy to announce that we are very close to launching 2 online courses completely free on our website. One is on mission, vision, and values, and the other is on planning. So creating an annual plan, creating a strategic plan. And so if you are a club board member, I would highly, highly, highly recommend that you go and check that out. They're both about 30 minutes. You will need to log into an account on our site, but it's free training to help you develop a mission, vision, and values for your club and to help get you thinking about how to make a plan. Because if you don't have a plan, then your club's probably not doing so well. We are also developing something we call Club in a Box. So this includes a whole lot of templates, such as bylaw templates, a nonprofit manual with policies and other best practices, a volunteer manual, and we're also going to have some governance training that we sourced from another company. So stay tuned to that as well, because this will be more free resources for you to use on how to run your club. And so speaking of bylaws, I did want to mention that if you hadn't heard, October 19th, 2021, the Ontario Not-for-Profit Corporation Act now came into effect. And so what that means is every not-for-profit in Ontario that's incorporated has 3 years to update their articles or amend their bylaws to be compliant. And after the 3-year time frame, if you have not done so, you will automatically be deemed to have them amended. And so that means if you do not update your bylaws, they may now be conflicting with the act, and the act will take precedence. So that might mean your bylaws are out of date or don't really make sense anymore. So there are a lot of new changes that we need to consider, such as new eligibility criteria for directors, minimum and maximum number of directors and terms, how to financially report, and much, much more. We have actually hired Sport Law to come up with some draft template bylaws for all 9 provinces. And so I'm working on getting that posted as well. But that'll be templates for you to use. So you can just insert club name here, insert how we handle this process here, and boom, you have a new set of bylaws ready to go. I did also want to alert you to the Ontario Business Registry. So there is now a new online platform that you can file your forms through. So whether that's submitting your annual filings, whether that's updating the number of directors or who your directors are, you can do all of that online now, which is a lot easier than snail mail in the past. You do need to register and get a corporate key. It's not that difficult, but it might be the only way going forward that you're going to be able to file your forms. So I'd suggest you take a look into that. To learn more about what the Not-for-Profit Corporations Act means, I would recommend you go to sportlaw.ca and look for their webinar. They did a 1 hour long webinar back in October and November, where Steve highlights all of the differences, all of the changes, and what it means for not-for-profit organizations in Ontario. So I'd highly recommend you go and watch that if you're not sure what's changed or why it matters. Bowls Day. Has your club signed up for Bowls Day? Seven, 30, 32, 33. Yes, no, unsure. It looks like yeses do currently have the lead, but no's and unsures are quite a few. Wow. Unsure. If you have not, I'd highly recommend you do, because it'll enter you in draws for prizes, and it's free to sign up. So there's really no reason why you shouldn't be. 20 yeses, 18 no's or unsure, so almost about 50-50 of yes versus no and unsure. We are happy to have partnered once again with MVP Sports. So that's Dan Milligan, Brenda Milligan. They are offering prizes again. So for the day of the event, we'll be drawing prizes for clubs to win. And also in the lead up to it, the past 2 years, we've had Bowls Day be a virtual event through online contests, quizzes, stuff like that. We will be doing that again, and there will be prizes for that as well, which will be for individual bowlers, more so than clubs. But keep an eye on that for when we start announcing and posting things. One of our new hires will be taking over the Bowls Day thing, so I apologize if you haven't got your materials yet. With the new staff transition, it's going to take a little while before they'll get to you. But they are on their way. We are working on that. And yeah, just make sure that you run something on National Bowls Day so we can spread the word about lawn bowling throughout Canada. Laws updates. So the World Bowls and the Laws Committee have undergone an update of the laws for the sport of bowls. So the 4th edition is currently being put together. It'll be voted on by all of the World Bowls members sometime in August. And so assuming that that's approved or passed, that would mean in September, we would have the 4th edition of the laws of the sport of bowls. Now for us here in Canada, we still need to translate it and then put it together into some sort of a booklet that you can use. So for this year, we'll still be using the 3rd edition, but come the fall or winter, we'll be publishing or producing the 4th edition that will then be available for purchase. I can't really speak to what the changes are yet because they haven't been fully approved or endorsed by all of World Bowls members, but I did want you to alert you to the fact that the rules may be changing. Commonwealth Games, for those of you who are unaware, we are sending teams to the Commonwealth Games July 28th to August 6th in Birmingham. So keep an eye on our social media, on our website to follow along, get updates, see what's happening. Big thanks to the Windsor Club for hosting a national team training camp in the next couple weeks here, where we will have, I think, 30 odd members coming to Windsor to get some practice in and perform. And from that training camp, we'll be selecting our squad. Event Connect. So we have a, sorry, Jason, I don't have any info on broadcasting for the Commonwealth Games yet. I'm sure we will share that once we have it, but I haven't really heard anything about whether Commonwealth Games will be streamed or put on TV or anything like that. I have no idea yet. Over the past 2 years, we have been working on developing partnerships, and one such partnership is a company called Event Connect. So this is a company that provides a platform that can handle player registration, scoring, standing, stuff like that, and sources hotels for you. So for 2022, when players register to compete in a national championship, they'll register, sign the waiver, sign the forms, be able to check scores and standings, but also be able to book their hotel room from something that looks sort of like this. So it's similar to Expedia, but we get discount pricing on select hotels. So Event Connect works with almost every major hotel in North America. And so they can get discount pricing based off of how many rooms we need, based on the dates, and based off of which hotels aren't already full. And so there'll be a list of a bunch of different hotels. Some of them will have discount pricing because Event Connect negotiated the deal. Some of them won't. But some of the hotels that have been locked in already will have the same price set, rooms blocked until probably 3 weeks before the event starts. So for all of you participants going to national championships, once we get this finalized and posted, you'll have the opportunity to book your hotels and register for the event from the same site. So I'm super excited to get started on that. Another partner that we signed up with is called Nuthers, the award store based out of London, Ontario. So they will be providing us with all of our medals and awards for national championships. And they have extended an offer to all of our provincial associations and all of our clubs. And so they have suggested that if your club uses medals, why not go in on bulk buying and get a discount? So if all 200 clubs in Canada decided they wanted to order the same medals to hand out to league winners, tournament winners, what have you, then you could access bulk discount pricing and get a bit of a kickback. So if you are interested in that sort of a program or learning more about Nuthers, the award store, you can send me an email or send an email to office@pulsecanada.com, and we can put you in touch with Nuthers, and they can get you a really good rate for quality medals. Fundraising. So with COVID, a lot of our funding was cut. Sport Canada stepped up and helped us out a lot, but we've been trying to make up the shortfall as well. And if you are unaware, Bulls Canada is a charity adjacent organization. We have registered charitable amateur athletic association status, which means that we can issue tax receipts if you donate to us. And so we have 3 big programs that we push: Giving Tuesday, the Great Canadian Giving Challenge, and then Christmas end of year for those end of year donations. As you can see, in 2019, we weren't really getting a whole lot in terms of donations, but through 2021, we are starting to grow slowly but surely. You can see that the number of donors has grown from 21 to 74, and the amount being donated has grown substantially as well. But the reason that I want to bring this up is that A, you can get tax receipts on your donations, but B, you can help us grow the sport. And so for those of you who may not be able to donate right now, I'm excited to say that we are accepting gifts by will. So if you are unable to donate anything at the moment, but feel like you would like to leave something behind for Von Bulls, I would encourage you to leave something in your will, because it does give you a tax break at the very end, which leaves more for your heirs. Question then for all of you: what do you think we use donations for? Sorry, I see some questions coming in the chat. Teresa, Event Connect. So Event Connect is specifically for national championships right now. So all participants, coaches, and umpires will register for the event and then have the opportunity to book hotels that way. I'm not quite sure if volunteers or viewers would be able to take advantage of it. That's a good question. I'll have to go back to Event Connect and ask them. Jan, about parables and people with disabilities, any advice to our clubs upgrades on access? So there is a foundation called the Rick Hansen Foundation, where they will come and do a survey of your club or your facility for free and give you a rating. And they'll say whether you're super duper compliant with accessibility standards or where you need some work. I believe they come and do that for free, but I'm not positive on that. But Rick Hansen Foundation is who I'd get in touch with, because they work with not-for-profits all across Canada to go and survey sites, see what needs to be done, and make recommendations on how you can go about doing that. Completion by 2025 requirements for law. I'm not quite sure what the Ontario law is for Access for Ontarians with Disability Act. What the requirements are for you to be an accessible facility, or when they are, that's a good question, and I don't have the answer for that. Back to this, providing resources, developing programs, coaching, officiating, and growing the sport. Great, great, great. Glad to hear that all of you are thinking that donations go right back into the sport, because they do. And so one of the many things that we're able to do with donations that we did a while back was create videos. And for those of you who haven't seen this yet, take a look. So hopefully you've all seen that already, but if you haven't, that's one of numerous, 3 actually, that we've made. They are available on our website. They are available to you for free to use however and whenever you would like. They're on YouTube, they're on our website, but if you want the direct download link, send me an email and I can send you a Dropbox link where you can download them directly. But that video and the 2 other ones were made thanks to donations. So if you want to see more videos, then we are going to need to get more donations so that we can actually do that. They're not cheap to make by any means. And whenever we do get donations, we put it right back into the sport by creating programs and resources for you. You can see a few questions coming in the chat here. The donation made to a club, get a tax receipt, and Jason's already answered that. So all good there. So our e-store that I mentioned is slowly coming. So our new website doesn't have a store yet, but it will be coming soon, where you can buy all of the wonderful things on the screen in front of you, from the Bowler's Handbook to the new Breeder's Manual to the Learn to Bowl kit, sign up for club coach workshops, what have you. So keep an eye on our store. Hopefully within the next couple of weeks, we'll have that ready to go. And that way, instead of sending an email to the office asking, how can I buy things, you'll be able to just go and buy it yourself through the store. We have partnered with a couple of different universities to do some research studies. Last year, we partnered with Brock University to do a study on women in bowls. So we wanted to find out why women aren't competing at higher levels once they get past the club level, and what are some of the barriers that are unique to women in bowls. And it came up with some very insightful data. We've had a lot of participants within that study, so thank you to all of you who participated in that study. But it's something that we're looking to do more and more of, is do official research, so that way we're not just making up decisions on the fly. We're able to actually have data to back up why we're doing what we're doing. And just about near the end here, the last thing I wanted to mention is that our vision is to bring Canadians together through bowls. And so with your help and support, we can do that. So we are here to support you, the club, you, the bowler, and we truly want to see all Canadians coming together through bowls. So help us to help you. If you are not already subscribed to our newsletter or social media channels, what have you, please do so, especially our weekly newsletter, This Week in Bowls, because that's our biggest way to communicate to all of you any new changes that are coming, any new resources that are being produced, any new materials, products, what have you. We typically put it in our newsletter. So if you're not signed up yet, then head on over to our website, bowlscanada.com, and go and subscribe to our newsletter. So that way we can communicate directly with you. And we are on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube, so you can check us out there too. I think that's it for me. Any last questions in the chat before I stop talking? Hearing none, I think I'm done.
So, Jake, thanks so much for that. That was very informative. And I'm sure the clubs will have more questions as time goes by and they think about your presentation. So if anybody's got any questions, just contact Jake after the event. Let's have a 5-minute break. I know there's no lineups for washrooms, but let's have a 5-minute break, and then we'll come back and start our director's reports. Enjoy your day, Jake. You're welcome to stay, by the way.
All right, thank you.
Oh, and I also want to thank you, Jake, for participating in the coaching session last week up at Richmond Green. So if you get a chance to send me an email on your thoughts about whether the facility would qualify for a national indoors, we'd appreciate that information too.
That would probably be something I need to work with the development committee on, because they would need to come up with requirements, specs, all that fun stuff, and then I'd have to go into a site tour. But yes, I will connect with you later on that.
Perfect. Okay, 5-minute break, and we'll be back at about 12 minutes past. Thank you. James, are you there?
He is logged on. He's muted at the moment, and he was having some technical challenges.
So we'll put James on whenever he gets back online. So, yeah, the next available spot after he comes back online, we'll put James on and do his report. Karen.
Sounds good.
179.
Okay, so Jake, I see you're getting lots of acclamations, which is great. And just supporting your efforts at Bowls Canada as well. So fantastic. Thank you. All right. Director's reports. We'll start with our director's reports with our executive director, Gary Oswald. So Gary, you there?
Yes, thanks, Philip. A CBC reporter, when commenting on the death of legendary actress Betty White, remarked, "Well, the death of the iconic Betty White on New Year's Eve just simply put an exclamation mark on how terrible 2021 was. Back in the spring of 2020, many of us thought that 2021 would provide some welcome relief from the pandemic challenges. While it's true the year was challenging, there was reason for optimism. We had lived through one of the worst years in our collective lives. It simply couldn't get any worse, right? There were vaccines that would soon be available to everyone. Businesses had started to reopen. Sports were being played again. And all the amateur sport associations, including the OLBA, had an advantage for 2021 compared to 2020. We had a COVID playbook, which would provide a course of action on how to guide sports safely. As we entered the 2021 season, the impact of 2020 was just coming to light. Bowls Canada released results from a survey of the previous season, and this was learned. Across the country, clubs encountered the following declines: 74% drop, average drop in membership dues, 90% drop in corporate bookings, 90% drop in summer nights, nearly 100% drop in coaching fees, and a 60% decrease in fundraising. Overall, clubs on average saw revenue drop by 73%. Clubs on average exhausted 1/3 of their reserve funds to operate. 39% of the clubs did not charge membership fees, and 30% charged 50% or less. Clearly, the impact of 2020 was harsh, and no one knew whether it would be carried on in 2021 or whether 2021 would be known as a year of recovery. Regardless, the OLBA needed to move on with business as usual, including the reinstatement of membership fees. Clubs were urged to encourage their members to be vaccinated so they could participate in club activities to assist volunteers, to keep the lines of communication open with their membership, keep or start applying for as many grants as possible, and encourage their members to join the club even if they couldn't bowl right away. At this time last year, things did not look very rosy. The government of Ontario had announced a state of emergency and issued a stay-at-home order. Case rates, hospitalizations, and ICU occupancy were increasing rapidly, threatening to overwhelm the healthcare system. The number of COVID hospitalizations in the province had increased by 28% in a matter of weeks. The OLBA had to face some harsh realities. Then COVID-19 projections suggested 1,000 new cases per day by the end of May, which was much worse than at the same time in 2021. It was expected the government would not drop restrictions, which may impact on play in 2021. Memberships are not expected to be that there would be some restrictions in 2021, and that they could be different in different areas of the province. Open houses might be canceled under BCB's return to play protocol, but we didn't know. As with 2020, the pandemic would have a significant financial impact on clubs. Many Ontarians were upset that the province was perceived as slow on reopening, and a lobby group of 40 provincial sport associations discussed how to lobby for the reopening of sports and recreation in the province. This was born out of frustration and perceived inconsistencies in the government policy at that point. As a result, the OLBA was one of many sports, culture, and heritage associations to be invited with a number of video chats with Lisa MacLeod, the Minister of Heritage, Sport, Tourism, and Culture Industries. At these meetings, the minister always concluded that my staff, quote, "My staff are available to you 24/7. Please reach out to me and my staff will respond." Like so many amateur sports, the OLBA did have a number of questions and did reach out to the minister, her staff, as well as the Solicitor General with critical questions about the participant numbers at our clubs. Repeated emails and phone calls were never, ever returned. Undeterred, the OLBA realized that the clubs and members deserved answers, and contact was made with Steve Indig, the Sports Law and Strategy Group, whose firm works with many provincial sport associations. His firm provided an assessment which essentially said no more than 5 participants on site at any time at that time. The next contact was made to the OLBA insurance carrier to determine if there were any repercussions for opening despite legal advice to the contrary. Our insurance carrier was blunt If you do not follow legal advice, association member clubs and members could be liable, as well as clubs being subject to potential bylaw infractions. The OLBA board does have a duty to protect the association member clubs and its members, which is what the OLBA has been doing and will continue to do so. Moreover, moreover, no one wanted to return to the greens more than the lawn bowlers on the OLBA board, but the road to that destination was fraught with legislative roadblocks. Fortunately, the OLBA received written legal confirmation that lawn bowls and was listed as a number of outdoor recreational activity permitted to open under certain conditions were satisfied. These conditions included the revised return to play protocols attached, which were approved by the OLBA Board of Directors on June 6th and were implemented immediately. The main change from 2021 was that there was a 4-stage plan instead of a 3-stage plan for the opening of club greens, with protocols to ensure the safety of all club members. This included outdoor capacity where physical distancing could happen. Like 2021, the season opened in June, with most clubs being able to offer lawn bowling in some capacity to its members. Gradually, the province opened up further, which led to a cautious but more relaxed environment when compared to 2020. All the while, the OLBA was looking forward to have people reconnect on the greens, and the championship committee, under the capable leadership of Steve Shupnick, developed Back to Bowls. This multi-city, multi-discipline event allowed provincial bowlers to gather and compete in the sport that they love in a safe and secure environment. Back to Bowls was a huge success and was the only interprovincial bowling tournament to be held during 2021. As the vaccines rolled out and people began to get their recommended second shot, the world got to know about another Greek letter. That one was Omicron. After suffering through 1.5 summers of restricted play and having tackled the Delta variant, the new and more rampant variant became known to the world. So, as the 2021 bowling season drew to a close, the OLBA and its member clubs hoped that 2022 would provide some light at the end of the tunnel. In the past 12 months, despite the cancellation of provincial and national tournaments, the OLBA saw a sooner opening to the season when compared to 2021, but was reason to be optimistic. I think that there was. People were still getting sick, but the vaccinated were not getting as sick. Hope that the pandemic would ultimately become an endemic. Vaccines still work. Other tools such as testing, ventilation, and masks were available. When the pandemic dominated the headlines in 2021 and into 2022, there were some success stories that were completed since we last formally met. As noted, Back to Bowls was a huge success and brought smiles to lawn bowlers province-wide. More clubs opened their doors in 2021 than in 2020. And those that had opened in 2020 got to open sooner than in the previous year, with less angst. The OLBA was successful in their amateur sport funding, generating close to $30,000, as well as receiving an initial payout of close to $6,000 in COVID relief funding from the government of Ontario. All of the $6,000 was passed on to our member clubs. More recently, this was complemented by another $76,000 in COVID provincial relief funding, which will also be passed on to our clubs. Just to note that the deadline for submitting your documentation to Steve Fanton to be eligible for the funding expires tomorrow. So if you haven't got it in, please do so as soon as possible. Continuing in an effort to remain current, the OLBA reviewed its policies, including Safe Sport, and began the initial steps to review its current bylaws so that we can ensure that we are ONA compliant. The OLBA and its member clubs were successful in acquiring Trillium New Horizons grants, which Ralph will allude to in a little while, to an unprecedented level in our sport. Through the OLBA's new strategic plan, as well as Bowls Canada's rebranding of the sport, the association will uncover fresh ideas and procedures for enticing new members to our sport, as well as, and probably more importantly, retaining our membership. The OLBA will be updating its membership data mechanism so that membership trends can now be tracked in the sport, and will develop solution to any problem areas. Through the COVID relief lobbying, the association voice and that of other sports grew substantially and provided the association with a greater and more vocal clout when dealing with the government of Ontario. Education and resources became one of the 6 key foci, as the association will endeavor to provide clubs with online resources and technical expertise to have them further succeed at the grassroots level. You have endured two of the most challenging years in over 100 years, and I'm happy to say that the clubs met those challenges with grace, ingenuity, perseverance, and good old hard work. As with the 2020 season soon approaching, we at the OLBA will continue to put safety and enjoyment of our members first, and we wish the club every success possible. And please enjoy the National Volunteer Week. Which brings us to the next major element, our strategic plan. As you know, the OLBA has been working with the strategic plan, which was part of the course of the association through 2025. The association's previous plan was supposed to conclude at 2021, but was extended to 2022 as a result of the pandemic. There are those that ask why there's a need for a strategic plan. While it is a prerequisite for the Government of Ontario's base funding, there is equally important reason to have such a plan. It provides a roadmap defining the best route to the association for the years ahead to meet challenges that lie ahead. Such a plan also sharpens the association's focus in order to achieve those goals while shedding much needed light on the right goals and targets. A plan also provides a mechanism for an association to heighten its awareness and strengths and weaknesses, where it stands in the competitive world of amateur sports and the nonprofit sector as a whole. The OLBA's road to 2025 began last February. Intense discussion sessions by the OLBA board, rated by an independent facilitator, were held. Discussions were held both collectively and in breakout sessions. Those participating were first asked to review the last strategic plan to determine the level of success in achieving those goals. While much was accomplished, the pandemic of the last 2 years certainly made it challenging to achieve some of the existing goals. The next step was to determine what the priorities for the association should be, to take those 15 to 20 items and mold them into a select number of strategic pillars. The board was in agreement on what the 15 to 20 items should be, but not necessarily in agreement with the degree of priority. Moreover, it became clear that many of the priorities which became strategic pillars were intertwined. As you will note from the documents that have been circulated to you, as well as the strategic plan on the OLBA website, 6 distinct pillars were identified. They were membership, equity, diversity and inclusion, education and resources, financial resources and funding, communication, and long-term athlete development. I'll now provide you with a Reader's Digest version for each of the pillars and attempt to show 5 points. Membership. Membership is declining and has not been helped through the last trying seasons. However, I have to admit that the dire membership reductions going forward of the pandemic were not realized. Clubs do a relatively good job in recruiting members. However, membership retention is a concern, and it is an issue in sports as well. When I worked in skating, national membership retention was around 40%. Ringette has seen their numbers drop by 35% over the last 5 years in Ontario, largely due to the popularity of women's hockey. Need to be taken to determine why people are leaving the sport, because we can't address a problem until we understand what the problem actually is. A 2020 survey conducted by Bowls Canada determined that many members leave the sport because of a bad experience. Whether it's the case of the OLBA, it's too early to tell. Perhaps there's just too many recreational and leisure alternatives out there for people. However, the OLBA is looking forward to acquire a new database system which will allow us to track membership, particularly membership retention, and follow up to determine the cause for the challenges in membership retention. How will we do this? The OLB will support membership growth on the club level, examine the prospect of offering flexible and appealing game formats, enhancing volunteer recognition, as well as major push on youth program development. The bottom line is that we need to provide all members and prospective members with an experience for which they want to come back to the greens. The second pillar, equity, diversity, and inclusion. Again, we need to provide a comeback experience for our members. One of the components of that comeback experience is to provide our members with a safe environment. The OLBA is firmly committed to ensuring that members practice safe sport and offer safe environment for our members. In recent times, sport has been plagued by issues of member safety, whether it's the Greater Toronto Hockey League And the racism allegations outlined last month in the Toronto Star, the allegations of abuse and bullying in the national gymnastics and wrestling communities, or the racism issues raised and improperly dealt with by the NHL Chicago Blackhawks, we must ensure that we do not become the next headline or soundbite. The third pillar, education and resources. So we told you what we would like clubs to do. That's the first step, but it will only be accomplished if we provide clubs with the tools to move forward. Education tools in our sport can mean many things: greens education, coaching, umpiring, leadership training, safe sport, and governance. The OLB will be charged with providing educational tools in all these key areas in order that our sport may grow. Financial resources and funding. Well, it's all well and good to say these plans and to make these plans and promises. If you don't have the financial resources available to implement them, then a lot of the time has gone to waste. The OLBA is committed, therefore, to recovering from the financial challenges of the past two seasons by diversifying its funding base and providing resources and expertise for clubs to increase their local funding. We are only as strong as our club base. Communications. I'll always remember a line from MASH. The episode was highlighted a breakdown in military communication, which was impacting on the 4077. And Hawkeye asked the representative from HQ, "Aren't you and me all part of us?" Well, we are. The OLB looks to increase local communication internally, with clubs, members, etc., while increasing our visibility externally. We want a greater exchange of information and ideas between the association and our members and our member clubs, particularly those clubs for which we're currently having communication challenges. We look forward to stimulate communication between clubs themselves and between clubs and their members, as well as providing you with the information from our national office. We are all members of the association, and you have the right to know what's going on and to feel included. The last pillar, but by no means least, long-term athlete development. In the eyes of the provincial sport ministry, this is a paramount pillar. When one thinks of athlete development, there's a tendency to think of elite competitive athletes. However, many sports associations, it's the recreational athletes that greatly outnumber the competitive ones, and who quite frankly pay the freight. The OLBA is committed, therefore, to focusing on the competitive and recreational bowlers through the availability of such things as on-green programs. As noted in the documentation that had been provided previously, LTAD also provides coaches, greenskeepers, officials, encompassing both current and future members. Many of our action plans here involve communication again, but also an extensive review of our current LTAD state. So where do we go from here? This is a very ambitious project, and with apologies to author Lewis Carroll, if you don't know where you're going, how will you know when you get there? So what's the next step? You will note from our strategic planning document that action and measurement criteria are listed, but no details on who ensures that these plans are being achieved. That's because the strategic plan was the first step of the process. Step 2, which is equally, if not more important, is the operational plan, whereby areas of responsibility, specific assignment of tasks, and timelines will be presented to and finalized by the board of directors so that these objectives can be realized between now and 2025. You know, associations have a tendency to be rather myopic when it comes to strategic plans. Sometimes they get so bogged down with the day-to-day business that they don't realize what's being accomplished strategically. While the association, and the world for that matter, encountered immense challenges for the past 25 months, it's hoped that the OLBA will emerge from these memorable times with renewed vigor, purpose, optimism to put these plans into action. Thank you.
Philip, you're muted.
Thanks, Karen. Thank you, Gary. And I want to thank the board for the amount of time and effort that was put into, and the discussion that was put into developing the 6 pillars. As little as 4 years ago, OLBA didn't have a strategic plan. So governance, now being a major focus area of government, requires that we do have a strategic plan, that we do have an operational plan. Once the operational plan is completed, the operational plan will be provided to all of the clubs as a template for the clubs to develop their own operational plans on an annual basis. So look forward to that. Okay. John Fenton.
Just before we go to John, is James able to unmute and do his report? I know he's been having technical issues.
Then we'll move on to John.
Yeah.
We'll try and touch base with James when John finishes his presentation. So motion number 3, the financial statements for the period ending October 31st, 2021, along with the auditor's report as circulation be approved. This is a motion. Moved by John?
I will, yeah, John.
John Fenton moving it. Need a seconder?
Mike Skelton.
Mike Skelton, thank you. Mike, what club are you?
Menorah.
Menorah, thank you.
Are there any questions of the financial statement? Seeing none.
Anybody opposed to acceptance of the financial statements for the period October 31st, 2021? And if nobody is opposed, then the motion is carried.
I only have one question, and that I'm Jim Wilson from Stouffville. I only see the income statement. I don't see a balance sheet. I don't see an auditor's report. So do we have a full report somewhere?
It's on the website. The entire report is on the website.
Okay.
Okay, so you can check that out on the website, olba.ca.
See what happens?
Motion number 4, the 2022 budget as circulated be approved. Moved by John.
John.
I haven't seen the budget. No, I don't.
Now, I'll second Ralph Ellis.
And seconded by
Ralph.
Jeff Shurry, Muskoka.
Jeff Shurry. Thank you, Jeff Muskoka. Any questions of John regarding the budget?
See, there was a question that came up there on why we pay membership or HST on membership fees. Government requires us to.
Yeah, we don't have much choice. We'd rather not, but we do have to. Anybody opposed to the acceptance of the budget for 2022? And there being no opposition, the motion is carried. Motion number 5, to approve the appointment of Mallet Professional Corporation licensed professional accountants as the OLBA auditor. Moved by
John
Fenton, seconded by
Joyce McClendon, Pickering.
Joyce. Thank you, Pickering. Anybody opposed to this appointment of Mallet? There being no opposition, then the motion to approve the appointment of Mallet Professional Corporation licensed professional accountants as auditor is carried. Next item on the agenda is a report by Ralph Ellis on grants. So Ralph, over to you.
Very good. So let's first start with how we did. In the first 4 months of this year, basically to the end of April, with the last round of Trillium grants, we were sitting at just under $1.3 million in grants. This, of course, is a new high for us. In previous years, just for comparison, in 2016, we had $235,000 in grants. In 2019, we went as high as $900,000. And now with 8 months still to go, 1 second here. Now with 8 months still to go, we're at 1.3 million, and I'd fully expect us to easily hit 1.5 million before the end of the year. In terms of the individual grants, In New Horizons, we had our best year ever. We had 27 clubs approved when the previous high was 25. Our success rate was 77%, which is a high also. And this happened in spite of a difficult 3-week window to apply at the end of December and a really horrible online application system, which is a headache for many of us. Where the big dollar changes came, because New Horizons ended up finishing around 700,000, but where the big dollar change came from us was in Trillium. Normally in previous years, we're looking at maybe 2 to 3 clubs getting Trillium grants a year. And this year we're looking at about 10. And so that's really a big difference for us because these are the bigger money grants. Trillium grants and the transfer payment Ontario grants, they are typically speaking anywhere from 10,000 to usually 150,000, but there were some as large as 450,000 this year. And so to access this, you have to be incorporated and you have to produce a financial statement that actually has a balance sheet, not just an income statement. So this is very, very important to us to have our clubs, again, more of our clubs incorporate, more of our clubs apply for this. It's a more difficult grant to get, but it's curious that actually as more clubs have applied, our success rate has actually gone up. With all of these, you're looking at grant money in 2022 being almost double what we expect to take clubs take in membership fees. And I don't mean OLBA membership affiliation fees. I mean total membership fees across Ontario. So grant money across Ontario is now double the source of income that membership fees are. So that's a huge difference for us. There are 2 missed opportunities that we've had in our grants so far this year. One is the Canada Summer Jobs Program. We have only had maybe about 3 or 4 clubs apply for the Canada Summer Jobs Program, where you can actually hire not necessarily a student, but just hire someone for the summer for your club. In the past, Muskoka has taken advantage of this. Calgary has. James Gardens just did this year. Right now, you're all pressed with volunteer hours, but how would you like to have 40 hours of employee labor each week paid for 100% by the federal government? And I've had some resistance on this grant with some clubs because they look around and say, well, what about doing payroll paperwork and all this sort of thing? When you're looking at 1 employee or even 2 employees, you're looking at about 15 minutes of payroll paperwork a week. So that in exchange for 40 hours of actual labor is very substantial. With my club, James Gardens, we hired our youth member. We hired Eric Gallipo, who's going to be a club coach, and he's also going to be involved in membership recruiting, also involved in running events at the club and being a draw master. And this all takes the weight off our volunteers. And this is a relatively easy grant to get. The OLBA is going to have a summer student for the first time. We're going to have a paralegal student look at our bylaws. And so that was an opportunity that we took advantage of. Another grant which tends to get overlooked is the Ontario Inclusive Community Grant, which is available through Transfer Payments Ontario. That's up to $60,000 to make your club more accessible. So if you want to make your washrooms more accessible, you want to have a ramp leading up to your clubhouse, you want to have ramps going onto your green. If you want to, again, get started with a parabolas program, this is a grant that you can pursue. But again, you have to be incorporated and you have to register with Transfer Payments Ontario. Now, where is the money going? What clubs and what sort of target areas are we looking at? When you look at the split across Ontario in the last 5 years, there are about maybe 40, 45 clubs who have received grants. So that's out of our total number, which is usually, again, it's a little under 117 now, but it was 117 back in 2019. So you're looking at about 40 to 45 clubs getting grants out of this. Of that group, there are about maybe 25 clubs who apply for pretty much everything. So they're out there each time and they're applying for Trillium, they're applying for New Horizons, they're applying for whatever they can get. And those clubs tend to do better. To give you a sense of what you can get on the extreme end of this, like James Garden, okay, of the 1.3 million so far this year, James Garden's share is $471,000. In the last 5 years, you total up in James Gardens, we're around about $580,000. So that's well over $500,000 in 5 years. And that's by sitting there and watching each opportunity that comes out and seeing when they had a grant that was available for $450,000. We went for it, we worked with our city, and we got it. So if you're going to do this, if you want to really be productive with it, then you step out there, you watch each opportunity as it comes along, and you go after it. And of course, we're here to teach you how to do it. The second part of my presentation here is to try to help clubs explain the strategic plan to your people. Because, of course, our strategic plan, which is available on our website, it's very large and it can be complicated and it can be a little difficult for you to boil down to your members, and especially for the areas that they're interested in. But the key elements for you to look at and explaining to your club members are three areas. One, money, culture, and governance, which cover most of your activities at the club level. There's not too much here in long-term athlete development. It's very important, but it gets focused on more at the provincial level than it does at the club level. Money is obvious. You need better facilities, you need money to advertise, you need help with operational costs. And for this, grants are the easiest way to get the money. As we've seen, again, it's the largest amount. It's probably the fastest to get, but you do have to plan. You can't just get it, apply, and boom, it's in your bank account next week. It's you applying now and usually get it either 4 months from now or you get it into the next year. Corporate events are becoming possible again. When before in COVID, of course, like at James Gardens, we just simply refused to have them during COVID. But now actually we're taking a look at that. We have a video online to show you, again, talk about how to do corporate events. And clubs make anywhere from like $3,000 to $10,000 a year with this. And it's relatively easy money to get. So again, that's something that clubs can explore as an additional way to draw on money. One thing that hasn't really been pursued in Ontario that much, but which is a big factor in other provinces, is running leagues. If you look at Natana in Saskatchewan, they run a league, and that league is responsible for more than 50% of their club's revenue. So it actually is, as important to them as their club memberships. So go to the Bowls Canada website, look at the Bias Bowls blog. You'll see the article from Natana, and they'll talk about how you run a league, because a lot of people aren't interested in joining a club. They're not interested in being involved. They're not interested in volunteering. What they want is sort of a sports experience, and you can actually charge them more for that than you can for regular membership. So all of these things actually, kick into your money supply, and so does actually charging an appropriate membership fee. So a lot of people don't like talking about that, but if clubs in 2022 charged as much on a real dollar basis as clubs in 1980, the average membership fee in Ontario would be like $210, as opposed to about like $150, what it is. So clubs have actually, on an inflation-adjusted basis, fallen behind what they charged in the 1980s. And you have fewer members than you had in the 1980s. So think about that. Think about what you really need to charge, but also realize that these other sources of revenues, grants, corporate events, running leagues, are actually sources of revenue that can exceed your normal membership money. So that's the first part, getting you the money that you need to operate. The next part is culture. Now, Bowls Canada has been the one who've been more focused on this. With the Belonging in Bowls program and the Safe Sport program, they're really looking at ways to make your clubs more welcoming and more able to reach out into the community. Because what we have, our turnover rate in Ontario has gone up to as high as about 15%. We had 1 year as high as 18%, but it's looking like our normal turnover each year is about 15%, as opposed to, let's say, the 1980s when it was about 10%. So that's a significant number of people to replace each year. And if our clubs were as welcoming and as warm as we thought they were, then we wouldn't have that issue. So take a look at the Belonging in Bowls program, take a look at the Safe Sport program. These are ways to help transform the culture at club and to basically make you into the club that you want to be. And now we come to the unsexy part, governance. So the one thing I used to do when I first set up the incorporation committee is that if someone was really bugging me, I'd turn to them and say, be careful, I'll put you on my incorporation committee. Because it is, of course, incorporation and things like that are the most boring things to talk about. But about half of you are incorporated. 57 clubs in the OLBA are incorporated. But if you want to if you want to give yourself better legal liability protection, that's one. That's the big reason. But secondly, if you want to get into the big money grants, you have to be incorporated. And your cost for this is like $600. Plus you have to fill in, again, a little bit of extra paperwork each year. And with this, you can access grants, typically speaking, up to $150,000, and you can apply every year. So we encourage you to be incorporated. We'll help you be incorporated. And this is very important to us because just you being able to do this, having more clubs apply for Trillium grants, more clubs through Transfer Payments Ontario, it really increases the amount of money flowing into our system. Now, one time in a board meeting, just to make John Fanton's hair stand on end, I said it would even pay us to pay clubs to incorporate. But you should do it on your own because it is actually so much in your own benefit. But the reality is that if we paid 20 clubs to incorporate and 3 of them were getting Trillium grants, it would have paid for itself. Get that? Okay. So with this, you really need to explore this. The OLBA will providing, again, some assistance in terms of like telling you how to incorporate, answering questions, things like that. And I want to give a shout out to Whitby. Whitby had gotten a Trillium grant under the OLBA's umbrella previously. And then we told them, well, you really should incorporate so you could apply each year. So Whitby went out and they incorporated and they got more Trillium grants. So a big shout out to Beth and her group in Whitby for following through on that and doing the work and making it pay. Other parts of governance, again, you're looking at how to run your club better. You've seen the presentation by Bowls Canada about Club in a Box, about having other material out there. The OLBA, of course, is working on materials to try and help you run your club better. And of course, this is not the really fun and sexy stuff, but it's the unfun and sexy stuff that gets you to the money. So we're here to help you with that, and we encourage you to explore the Bowls Canada material, and the OLBA will certainly, again, be helping move you along in this direction. So thank you for that part. Just remember, if you have any questions, contact me, Ellis at olba.ca, and our other board members in their relevant areas. Now, are there any questions on this before we launch into awards?
Ralph, I just want to say one thing or two things. If you don't apply, you won't get any money. We also know those clubs that are applying for grants have trending that their membership is increasing. I'm generalizing. Those clubs that are not applying for grants, the trend line is that their membership is decreasing. That's the trend lines for those two categories of clubs. So get engaged. As Ralph said, you can get information from Ralph about how to apply for a grant, whether it's New Horizons or Trillium. And as far as registration of your club, contact Gary Oswald at olba.ca, and Gary will help you through that process. Okay, so let's go to awards.
Yes, now to the fun part of the presentation. So now for the first set of awards, we're going to go to the President's Award, which will be presented by Philip Francis.
Thank you. Don't know how I'm going to... Is it upside down?
No, that's right.
This award is being presented to Charlie Roach for meritorious service to OLBA. Those clubs that have been in touch with Charlie know that he is very willing to come and visit, no matter where you are in Ontario, give you all the sage advice that you need for maintaining your greens. And I know that the clubs over a long period of time have valued Charlie's advice. And so Charlie, that President's Award for 2022 is awarded to you. And what more can I say? You've run out of time on the board, so you're resigning this year. I know that you've said that you'll stay as a committee Greens chair, and OLBA board members just want to thank you and appreciate all that you've done. Thank you.
Thanks, Ralph. Philip, I'm sorry. It's been a good run. I really enjoyed my time on the board. But I was just looking a minute ago, and I have served under 6 presidents. So you know how long I've been on the board. So I'm sure some of you are getting tired of me. So, but I'd like to thank the board of directors for sort of accommodating whatever I wanted to do on the green. That you give me free reign, and I really appreciate that. It's been a big change since, I would say, probably the early 2000 when I went on the board. And one of the reasons is not that I don't like doing the work. I love doing what I'm doing. It's just I'm not computer literate, you know. And if I want to type something, I only got two fingers. And it's tougher and tougher for old people to get with all the new technology and everything. I'm doing the best I can, but I figure some younger people should be able to take over. And I've been trying to teach people. I don't want to take all this knowledge I had in the last 30 years that I've been doing green. I would like for it to still be helpful in the future. That's why I got involved with Guelph University and one way. But I would like a young person in Ontario do some more or less like take over, and I would work with him as much as you want or as little as you want to try to get this greenskeeping learning. I think it's a must, because I keep telling all the greenskeeper, you're the most important part of your club. If you haven't got a green, you don't have a bowling club. You might have a euchre club or a bridge club, but you will not have bowling club because you'll have no greens. So that is the most important part of the lawn bowling as far as I'm concerned. And I will continue doing what I can to help as long as I'm around. So thank you very much. I really appreciate the honor. Thank you.
Charlie. Thank you very much, Charlie.
Very good. So now we're going to move on to the Bill Becker Volunteer of the Year Award. And the recipient for 2021 is Judy Stanky from Kingston. Judy has done many, many things to help lawn bowling both in Kingston and in District 15. She's been involved in coaching, greenskeeping, applying for grants, administering her district, and mentoring others in her district. She's been a driving force behind lawn bowls in Eastern Ontario. My first idea for doing a presentation here was to say Judy has done everything except, and then of course we couldn't find anything after the except. So Judy's done it all. Judy's done everything. And for that, of course, Judy is the 2021 Volunteer of the Year. So if we could just have Judy pop on there and say a few words.
And that is the award for Judy. Let's see.
Now, Judy hasn't hopped off the call, has she? Or are you muted, Judy?
I think she's on, she may be on the phone, so I think that's *6 to unmute herself, if I'm correct.
I can hear and see Judy.
Judy, we got you. You're good. You're good. Yeah.
Okay, I thought I'd seen Judy earlier under the Kingston banner under this, but again, thank you again, Judy. Your work is appreciated, and you are certainly a real contributor for your club and for your district. I'll move on briefly to the Ontario Volunteer
Ralph, yes. Judy is actually with us.
Okay, good. If Judy could hop on now, that'd be great. Judy, are you muted? Okay, we're not hearing anything.
Yes, we're hearing Judy.
Everybody hear her just fine.
Is hearing her. Yes, Ralph, we can hear her.
Oh, odd. Okay, go ahead.
Can't hear her.
Ralph, I can't hear her either, so.
Oh.
Yeah, it's interesting. Some people can hear her and some can't. Just let me know when she's finished for those that can hear her, please.
Okay.
Very good. Thank you, Judy.
Great.
Okay. So,
moving right
very
along.
well. Yes. Then so next up is the Ontario Volunteer Service Awards. Now, the Ontario Volunteer Service Awards, any organization in Ontario can nominate 6 people a year. The OLBA has nominating people in 2021 and 2022. Just a reminder that all of your individual clubs can use the Ontario Volunteer Service Awards to honor your local volunteers and your local people. So certainly feel free to explore that, and we're happy to direct you to the appropriate links. We did it for both 2021 and 2022, so I'm going to mention briefly the names that we have. For 2021, we had Ron Charles, Cheryl Ann Milligan, Judy Slanke, Gord Twilliger, and Carl Thiel. And for 2022, we had Alan Steffen, Beth Paddock, Jim Roth, Dave Allen, Sally Mills, and Lorraine McLean. So congratulations to all of those people. Again, and your work has been appreciated and noticed. I wish we could do more than 6 people a year, but this is the limitation from the government. And we are very happy to use this mechanism to honor our volunteers. This is the first year that honoring volunteers has been part of the OLBA strategic plan. And we really think it's a very important part of our organization and also of your local clubs. So let your people know. And remember, the absolute worst thing in the world is a posthumous award. Let people know how important they are while they're still around. And so, again, take a look at honoring your volunteers and certainly follow up with that. And we're happy to help you with that. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Ralph. Job well done. We'll move to championships. Steve Shutnick. You there, Steve?
Hello?
Yeah, I'm here.
G'day, Steve.
Hello, David.
Good afternoon, everybody. Well, it is the afternoon now. I sent out a report earlier, and I'm just going to go over a few things on that report. I want to talk about the open events. The fours is pretty well, registration is pretty well done. Actually, the last day is tomorrow. Likely don't get any. But we're back to pre-COVID numbers. Like we've got 8 ladies teams and 16 men. That's what we had before COVID. So we're kind of ecstatic about that. The pairs, the due date coming up is the 19th of May. Still lots of time to register, but just a note, if you register in the pairs and you've already registered in the fours and you win the fours, you will get your money reimbursed because you can't play in both. And the pairs and singles are kind of new this year because they're open, so we don't really know what kind of numbers to expect. Novices. I've had a number of questions on novices. 2020 and 2021 years do not count towards novice eligibility. The novice events that we have coming up, the novice singles, there is a club qualifier. It's a good thing to encourage all or as many novices to come out as you can. The more novices you have out, the more representation you will have at the district. Because for every 3 entered, you can send 1 to the district. So if you have 9, you can send 3. So that's why we encourage all the get your new bowlers, get your novices to come out because it is a learning experience. It's a fun experience, relaxing experience. And the new thing this year is the combo fours, mixed combo fours. I've had questions about that as well. 2 men and 2 women. They have to man, woman, or woman, man, to play in the fours. But in the pairs, it's going to be Aussie pairs. And it's Aussie pairs, men pairs and ladies pairs. And that's every game you play for pairs will be Aussie pairs. I was asked that question. I'm just going to make that statement for now. Again, that is something totally new. I have no idea if it'll be a success or it won't be. Time will tell. Another thing I want to touch on is the triples. And that works the same as the novice. 2020 and 2021 do not count in this triples eligibility. For the triples, you can't have competed in the nationals in the last 5 years. But don't include 2021 because there was no championships that year. Because we brought this event back. We were with the intention of encouraging bowlers who are maybe not championship caliber bowlers, but who want to compete. This kind of event is for their purposes. And one other thing, championships have got a donation from Blue Triton, which is Nestle water, for our championships this year. So all the championships that are eligible will receive water and compliments of Nestle for their championships. And I think that's about all. If anybody has any questions, if you have any questions or whatever, you can email me. You know, email, because quite often you'll come up with questions after the day is all said and done. Don't hesitate to email me or even give me a call. I don't hide.
Jan Bauer has a question, Steve.
Yes, ma'am.
So our question is, can previous novice gold medal winners who are still novice play in the novice championship, district and provincial?
I think way back when we had this review, we had said yes. The thing was, well, this won't count for this year, but we were saying that the novice combo fours team were to win, they could all come back as well, but they would not be able to come back as the same team. But yes, we had said that they could come back.
Jan has her hand up.
Jan, I think you need to unmute.
A previous gold medal winner of novice singles who's still a novice can come back and defend.
We have stated as such that 3 years ago, we thought that would be good if the novice could come back.
Steve, you want to mention uniforms?
Oh, yes. For this coming year, we are introducing our new uniforms. So every provincial champion that goes to the nationals will be getting new uniforms. When I say uniforms, I mean 2 shirts and a jacket. Those events that are not going to nationals, which is the 2 novices and the triples, will receive the uniforms of our current stock. We wanted to kind of introduce new uniforms, being that we are hosting most of the national events. Anybody else?
Maybe, Steve, you could just talk on your info to the district chairs and your handbook.
Oh, yes. Championship committee has updated draw master guidelines. We're not making the handbook, it's a guideline. It's online. It'll help you. The intention is to help you draw master tournaments. We tried to dumb it down as best we could. By reading it, if you still have questions, get a hold of me. But this should help you manage your own tournaments. And we've also updated the conditions of play, which is also online. And it's a good thing to read that, because when you come to the championships, you need to sign that you've read it and understood it.
May I make a comment or a question rather?
Go ahead,
Sure,
Jan.
I'm here.
There was a situation several years ago where after the competition, there was some bit of a controversy. It was clear that the two people who were complaining had not read or understood the conditions of play. And I said to them, you don't blame other people, take responsibility for yourselves. But how do we deal with that? Whether it becomes clear during or after competition. They've signed the statement that they have read and understood, but clearly they haven't.
And you know, when you ask them to do it, you have to take it that what they sign, they've actually done it, even though you know probably about 50% or more haven't done it. Because you can tell when you get into an event, people will ask you questions. Well, you know, right then they didn't answer or read the conditions of play. But I don't know how you can really get around that unless you're going to stand there and read it before each event, and that gets kind of.
If it's clear that they haven't read the COP and they decide they want to file an appeal of something that occurred, is that allowed?
Well, if they haven't, probably what they're filing an appeal for is probably stated right there in the conditions of play. But because
Well,
they
indeed
haven't,
it was. It absolutely was.
yeah. Well, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, but I mean, they said, yes, we've read and understood, and clearly they hadn't.
Because as far as I'm concerned, they really don't have a leg to stand on.
Okay.
I believe I have a question from Lori.
Hi, Lori Roth from the OLBA. Steve, when are the forums going to be on the website for the other events and when they have to be in by? Like I know the fours and pairs are on there and singles. When are the other ones going to be up?
Well, the youth and the indoors should be up now, because we did that about a week ago.
Oh,
Are those the ones you mean?
Yeah, and the novice.
Then the novice will be up shortly.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Steve, on behalf of OLBA, thank your committee members for all the work they put in over the last year. I know there's been a lot of effort put into just clarifying all of the conditions of play. So great job. Thanks.
No problem.
Any more questions of Steve? If not, we'll move to greens. Charlie, you got anything to talk about?
Yeah, I just got a few things.
Go ahead.
Just want to thanks OLBA for setting up the seminar we had online, especially Ralph. He did most of the heavy work, get it set up, and promote it. And I was surprised that we had as many attended as we did, and that was really good. And there was a lot of good questions. And I know there was a few glitch here and there, but that was the first time we ever tried that. And thanks to Ralph, it turned out pretty good, I think. I'm prejudiced, so. And then the second thing we did was Ralph came over to Burlington and we put up about 6 small short videos. And that was trial and error also. Ralph, that was the first time that Ralph ever did a video like that. And it was the first time I ever did some instruction like that. And there was nothing written up. There was, Ralph would set up the camera and I would say, is it ready? He says, yes. And we went ahead. And also it turned out fairly good. And I'm sure it'll be helpful for somebody. And we got some plan to do some more. I'd like to do a seminar, probably, well, I'm going to be fairly busy in August with the Canadian, but in September, I'd like to do one about the benefit of closing your green for the winter and doing it properly. If it's possible, if Ralph gets some free time in September, we probably could do it. We could do it like we did, like a seminar, or we might be able to do some on the green, like visual. So I'd like to thank my committee, not my company, but OLBA Greens Committee, chaired by myself, and we got Larry McClellan from St. Mary's. He does most of the western part. And then we have Jan Bauer, Ted Pickles, and David Jeffrey from Ottawa. So if anybody needs any one of us to go to see their look at their green or try to help them, if you just let me know and I'll send whoever is the closest. We don't, with the price of gas now, the mileage is getting to be a losing situation for us to travel. So let's say, for instance, District 16 and 15, David Jeffrey could look after you. 14, 15, 14, 13, Jan Bauer. I can do most of, around here, Toronto, Burlington. Ted Pickles can help around that area from District 13, I think. And Larry can do most of the West. So we try to spread the work and the cost around. So I'd like to thank all the committee for supporting me for the last so many years, and especially Ralph. You did a fantastic job, and thank you very much for helping the greenskeeper. That's all I have. Thank you very much, everybody. I appreciate all the help I get. Thank you.
Thanks, Charlie. Long-term athlete development. Mary Lou, are you there? Mary Lou Richards?
You just have to unmute yourself, Mary Lou.
Myself. Okay.
There you go.
Okay. So the new club coach now is offered as a blended course with Bowls Canada, and it composed of 2 3.5-hour sessions online and 1 6-hour session person at a host club. Total hours for the training is 13 hours and 175 for Ontario. We've been working closely with Bowls Canada and Jake for the Part 1 online class. Like he mentioned, we've had 5 sessions and 134 all across Ontario from District 1 to District 16 have taken a course. Scheduled classes will be posted shortly, so I just finished all the report for the schedules and you should see it. But for now, it's June 7 and 14 for the evening sessions from 5:30 to 9 o'clock. And on July, it's July 7 and 14 from 5:30 to 9 o'clock also. Other schedules, if we see that more people want to take the classes, we can do or schedule more classes for a one-day session during the weekday. We just finished the Part 2 in-person class a week ago, last Saturday at the Richmond Hill Lawn Bowling Club, where we had 13 new coaches and 1 active coach attending, and the response was very positive, especially from the coach who has already taken the course 8 years ago and is actively coaching. She said that it was a totally different class from when she first took it 8 years ago. So we do highly recommend that coaches who have not been active might take the whole course again. Or if you're a coach from other sports also who are actively coaching, that another option is that you join us for the part 2 session so that you can refresh your teaching and bowling skills, because what we taught 8 years ago is not the same anymore as what we're teaching now. We are scheduling other part 2 sessions around national events. So it's going to be around in District 9 around Port Credit, District 5 around Roselawn at Roselawn Lone Bowling Club, and District 1 around the mixed pairs and para championships in Windsor. If you've taken the coaching course, the next part 2 lesson is going to be in District 16 in May 14, and please contact Blaine at Phillips at OLBA for details. We're also continuing our player development courses, and Niagara on the Lake has requested one particular class for their area, and it's delivery, vice, and skip review clinic for the club bowlers. Our regular clinics continue to be line and weights, introduction to competition, and the bowls athlete or high performance clinic, which I am excited to give because as part of the high performance team for Canada, I do have more information on how they're running their high performance camp, so that the material that the high performance players are getting will be shared for this camp. We, the coach trainers and player developers, are looking forward to working with you and helping you become better coaches and players. And if you want more information, contact myself or Blaine Phillips for classes and player development sessions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary Lou. Any questions? Okay. Umpiring, Jason, do you have any comments?
As the unloved stepchild of sports, the officials, this is not going to be a very big year. We're going to be looking back at getting back to our level 1 courses next year. The national level hasn't moved that material to an online format yet. And just with all the other things trying to get organized and back into what is hopefully going to be a pretty normal year, it just weren't able to get courses put together. However, for the umpires in the room, and talk to your umpire friends, we finally have stuff to do this year again, so we should be excited about that. We have our normal slate of provincials, plus we're hosting a bunch of national championships. I had sent out to the umpires just a kind of availability survey for these events. And on the provincial side, we'll start looking at booking all that out in the near future. On the national side, we'll pass that information along to the people responsible for that, just so they have a better idea of who they might be able to work with. But besides that, if you ever have any umpire related questions, you can always email umpire@olba.ca, and that will get to me. And if it's not my job, it'll go to whoever's job it is. So otherwise, well, that's it. Keep it short and sweet for you.
Thank you, Jason. There was one question. How do people get the red shirts?
Okay, the shirts, I have them. And I know one person I still have to ship their shirt to already. But if anybody else, email me because I'll have to see what sizes I have. We are transitioning. And actually, if you look in the picture there, you can see the 2 different shirts on the PowerPoint slide. We're just going to start ordering the Bowls Canada shirts instead of having our own shirt, just because it just doesn't make any sense to clutter up your wardrobe with more uniforms than you need. So if anybody does need a shirt, email me, and again, umpire@olba.ca, and we should be able to get it straightened out.
Thank you, Jason. Governance, Nan Hendren, are you there?
I am.
Good morning.
Thank you, Philip. Good afternoon, everyone. As noted in my report, the governance committee has been very busy over the past year dealing with for the most part, return to play protocols for outdoor, indoor, and short mat, working closely with our lawyers and Bowls Canada to ensure compliance so we could get back to play. As Ralph mentioned, governance isn't very exciting, but it's very important. And in order to get our funding through the Ontario Amateur Sport Funding routine, we need to have our bylaws in place. We need to be in compliance with the not-for-profit Ontario Act, not-for-profit corporations. And to that end, we will, as Ralph mentioned too, we have received funding to hire a paralegal student to look at our bylaws over the next year. So you'll be seeing probably this time next year, there'll be some bylaw updates coming forward. And you'll also hear from Gary on the what you need to do to become incorporated and comply with the Not-for-Profit Corporation Act. Last year, we did a full policy review, and you saw some updates to our policies last year, but we continue to do this on a regular basis because things do change, and we try to keep up to date and relevant. We did change our elections policy this year, the concussion policy, membership. There's a new co-op advertising policy that you may want to check out. And I draw your attention to the screening policy. We've changed the title of that to the police criminal records screening so that it's clear what it's about. And it's part and parcel of safe sport. And when we talk about safe sport, we don't mean people falling and getting injured on the green. We mean being welcome, not harassed, not discriminated against. And part of the safe sport is having background checks done on people who are in positions of authority and power where they may be dealing with vulnerable people such as young people. So the one change I wanted to mention on the screening policy, now the police criminal records, is we have a club policy noted in there, and the main change is if you have new executive committee members, you need to have their police records check done. But once you have received the original, subsequent reviews can be done by that person simply completing a declaration form to say that they have not had any criminal offenses. Also, you can keep that paperwork can be handed back to them, and you don't need to keep the check on file. Just note that you have received it. And the reimbursement from the OLBA to help pay for those records checks is still available. Are there any questions?
I think the provincial government have announced that there will be no fee for the standard criminal record check done through the OPP, right? Is that correct?
Yes, for the standard, if you need a vulnerable sector search done, I believe there's still a small fee.
Correct. Thank you. Anything else? Questions? Mary Lou Richards putting up dates for the next seminars. Okay. Thanks, Nan.
Thank you.
All good. Yeah, the co-op program, we haven't been able to connect with James, but just to let everybody know, there is money available through the OLBA budget for people who want to advertise open houses or do various other promotional activities. The reimbursement is 75% up to a maximum of $500. So I think I've got that right. If John, I haven't, let me know. But yes.
Just a comment. Make sure that they use the Give It a Try logo.
Thank you for that. I forgot to mention that. The Give It a Try logo. We have some examples that we've provided you, and we'll continue to support you in that regard. So hopefully you have a good open season and successful open houses. Any other questions?
It's Karen. I didn't receive any advanced questions via email, which we did encourage people to do.
Okay. There was one question popped up there, Nan, if you could answer that about when do we have to renew?
Every 3 years. So you would do a declaration every 3 years to say, I have not had any police or records, any problems. If you're, as I mentioned, if someone is new, or say they've been, they become the treasurer, for example, then they would get a records check done. And then every 3 years, the declaration that they haven't had any offenses.
That's for the vulnerable, right? The vulnerable check is every 3 years.
For any of them, it's a declaration at the club level. You can declare every 3 years. Yeah. Now that doesn't preclude a president or a club asking for a police records check if they suspect there's been a problem, but you're dealing with that person every year, so you probably know if there's something going on.
And the detailed policy is on the website.
Yes, it is. Yeah. And it contains the club policy, which is what most of you would be interested in looking at.
Question. And the co-op policy is also on the website.
Yeah, and the declaration form is also there. It just says, I've not had any offenses, and you declare that you don't.
Charlie has his hand up. Got a question, Charlie?
Yeah, I was just wondering, now that I'm not going to be on the board and probably on the OLBA site that we use, how do the greenskeeper are going to be able to get in touch with me? And my second question was, who's going to be on the board that's going to be sort of representing the Greens? If I have some question or something.
So Charlie, we can set up an email address, greenskeeping@olba.ca. Do we have one like that now, Jason?
We can just keep his address. There's no reason to kick him off. We have a ton of people who aren't directors that have addresses because they do business for us. So yeah, we can keep that, no problem.
Okay, perfect.
That's great. I was just wondering. And if I get a question to the board, can I go to my buddy Ralph and
you can go to Ralph
so we can bring it to the board? Okay, thanks. Okay,
Brandon
that's all I
Noble,
have.
you had your hand up.
Yes. Do we still have to have the members sign waivers this year for the COVID reasons for the last 2 years?
And just so it's clear, when we say waiver, we mean the once a year, we won't sue you for all these things. We're not talking about the, signing in every day that you don't have symptoms or anything. That I think is still kind of up in the air, what may or may not have to be done. But the waiver is the once a year thing. So we won't sue you thing.
Correct.
Thank you.
Philip, there's a question in the queue. Philip, there's a question in the queue about vaccinations.
Okay. I didn't see the question.
It's from Dave Allen.
I think there was a related question though, with regard to any clubs that are holding OLBA events, districts or provincials or nationals. If they have a vaccine rule in place, would that apply for that event as well?
Okay, Dorothy, you have your hand raised.
Yep. So just so you know, Leaside is hosting the provincial women's pairs, and we were required by the OLBA to either drop the vaccine requirement, which we have, for the weekend of the championship, or the championship would be relocated. So we were told we had to, if we wanted to still host.
Is that a problem, Dorothy?
No, we've done it, but I'm just saying that's what, I'm hearing conflicting information now. Okay. Okay. Well, that was his communication, so.
Okay, thank you, Dorothy. Laurie, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, just about that, Dorothy. The thing is, we have to know ahead of time. We can't have one venue that does have restrictions. It's not fair to the other players that there is no restriction. I can definitely understand your point, but if we had known ahead of time, we could have moved it somewhere else. And I know because of timeline, it was hard to do that as well. But it's wonderful that you have lifted it just for this event. And if your members aren't comfortable, I wouldn't blame them for not coming, to help. So, and if we need to know that, we can have more OLBA members helping out at that tournament. And we thank you for what you're doing.
So what is the actual policy then? Because Ralph just said the opposite of that.
Is Steve the person to answer?
Ralph? Okay. Cindy?
We felt that if the Nationals did not have a restriction, how could we stop someone who, say, wasn't vaccinated from going to a provincial playdown when they could play in the Nationals? We had to be consistent from one end to the other.
Yes, that's right. I know that Steve contacted all the clubs that were going to host OLBA, and I know that Bowls Canada were going to contact those other clubs to ensure that there were no impediments from a policy point of view.
And that's, Burlington said they wouldn't have restrictions.
Correct, and neither would Windsor or Woodstock.
Correct.
That's my understanding. Linda Morrish has a hand raised. Question?
Or you could type it in the
Chat.
chat box if you can't unmute.
Dorothea, you have your hand raised.
Thank you very much. I just have a question about hosting open tournaments if your club is choosing to do the restrictions and other clubs aren't. Thank you very much.
Yeah, the worst case scenario, Dorothea, is that a team turns up, they don't meet your requirements, then they can't come in, and then that messes up your tournament because now you have one team not enough, and so on. You know what it's like. So yeah, it's important to, if you're going to have restrictions, like masks, I wouldn't think is a big issue if clubs decide they want to have masks. What I would suggest is that they have a supply of masks if they're going to insist that people wear masks. But if it's about vaccination certification, that's a wholly different thing.
Okay, so I'm taking it then that I would need, as the drawmaster, I would need to ask all the participants ahead of time if they have a vaccination.
You just make it clear.
I would say just include it in your conditions of play that you send out to make sure it's clear. And then you would just do whatever checks you do as they're coming in.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, I think we're done with questions.
One more.
I understand that vaccinations are not mandatory. I didn't see the rest of it. Can you ask your question, Linda? Can you unmute?
I'll read it. It says, I understand that vaccinations are not mandatory. What I'm hearing is that it is self-regulating within a club for regular games. We told members it's back to pre-COVID play terms, so we don't have to ask for proof of vaccination to meet Bowls Canada and insurance requirements.
Correct. Any other questions, comments?
So
okay.
Just before we adjourn, Philip, as Ralph mentioned at the beginning, we have a recording that will be posted sometime soon as well. I hope to have a draft of the minutes up by the end of the week, which you're free to point your members to and to share with them. If you're looking for just a specific item, that's probably the quickest way to find it rather than in the middle of a long recording.
Okay, thanks, Karen. Nan, you have any comment, question?
I just had a question. Is the board staying online to chat?
When's our next meeting, Karen?
Our next scheduled meeting is May 15th. We do have one new board member, Deb. Welcome to the board, Deb. So maybe we can just